All right, if y'all ready, we'll go ahead and get started. Anybody have any changes to the agenda? If not, I'll make a motion the agenda be approved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
First item is going to be an update of our 2020 audit. Mr. Hollfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner. Appreciate you having Russ back to do your audit this year. We happy to report that the audit went smooth. We all, I hate to even bring up COVID. I think everybody's tired of talking about that. And sort of we had some COVID delays, those type of things. And of course, the state extended the due date until September 30th, which the audit was filed on timely. So we all good shape there. Appreciate Sandy's help in getting us everything, and we're here to report the results to you. So you have two packets here. So the big blue, we're not going to spend much time in here unless you have questions on this, but this is the end result of the audit. And this is the audit report itself, has all the letters, has all the financial statements, everything. This is what was ended up being published, ended up being submitted to the Department of Audits for Gilmer County. We're going to stay in this right here, a summary presentation. I'll go through there. You stop me anytime if you have any questions. And certainly as we get to the end, if there's something I didn't cover that you'd like to ask about, I'll be glad to do that. If we are following hard copy, I'll refer to page numbers at the bottom right so we make sure we stay on the same slide. So I'm on page 2. And you'll see as we go through this that we have 3 letters from our firm. I'll cover all 3 letters, the first one being our audit opinion letter. So this is where we're issuing an opinion letter on the financial statements. This letter talks about our firm's responsibility during the engagement and what the county's responsibility is. So just a reminder, the financial statements, even though we assist in preparing those are approved by management. We get a management representation letter signed for those, that you're taking responsibility. The financial statements are the responsibility of the county. Our responsibility is to give an opinion of whether those financial statements are fairly stated. And we believe they are. We've issued a clean, unmodified opinion on the financial statements. On slide 3, just refer here to 2 statements. We're going to cover some numbers out of these 2 statements. But 2 statements that you are not accustomed to seeing on a monthly basis, but rather just an annual basis when we present this audit and the financial statements are presented, is the statement of net position and the statement of activities. Okay, so this takes all your funds combined, all your different funds, and puts them into 2 financial statements. The statement of net position is similar to, in business terms, referred to as a balance sheet. The statement of activities, similar in business terms, will be referred to as the income statement or profit and loss statement. On slide 4, I've got 5 years of numbers that come out of these statements. The first 3 columns there that have the dollars in those are your net position that add up to your 4th column of the total net position. We're just breaking down what that total is. And you say, okay, what's net position? Sort of like net worth, if you will, from a familiar term, when you look at all the assets that the county has, less all the liabilities, everybody that the county owes at the end of the year, the difference is your net position. And that total net position was almost $58.9 million, just under $58.9 million. That total net position on that bottom row there is broken up into 3 categories. Your largest being your net investment in capital assets, $35.5 million. That is any capital assets we have, infrastructure, roads, buildings, vehicles, Equipment, less any accumulated depreciation, less any related debt that are on those capital assets equals $35.5 million. Restricted net position, almost $12.5 million, would be funds that the county has or assets, less liabilities that the county has that are sitting in a separate fund that are restricted for a specific purpose. An example of that would be our SPLOST dollars. Those dollars come in, we must spend those in a specific way that was approved on the voter referendum, and so those would be restricted for those purposes. Another would be hotel motel tax, the restriction on how some of that money has to be spent. And then the third number is our unrestricted, basically all the remaining, right at $10.9 million in unrestricted net position. You'll see a big increase from the previous year, $7.5 million. I'll cover that in just a second. If you look at our revenues over our expenses, which would come from the statement of activities, our revenues over our expenses for the year was $8.8 million. Okay? You see that's up significantly from the $4 million the year before. The most significant in that is, and you'll see when we get into the general fund presentation here in a minute, we had the CARES Act funds came in. That was over $1.5 million that came in on the CARES Act funds without really much, if any, increase in expenditures that we had for that. We also had a large increase in our local option sales tax, our special purpose local option sales tax, and our TABT motor vehicle tax. Okay? All those increased significantly during the year on our revenue side. That are the most significant changes that cause that bump up. So anytime we have an increase in our revenues over our expenses, that's going to increase our net position as well. On slide 5, we'll talk about just the general fund here. So previously, are all funds combined. This is one fund, the general operating fund of the county. And if you look at revenues here, they increased almost $3.7 million, up over 16%. And these are not all the changes in the revenues, but the most significant ones. Our property tax increased $470,000. Our motor vehicle TABT tax increased almost $407,000. Our local option sales tax increased over $1 million. Okay, so even though we were in a COVID period, people were still spending money. Okay, and I know y'all had a lot of influx of people coming in to set out their COVID experience up here in the mountains, so that's certainly they were spending some dollars. Our intergovernmental increase, that's where the CARES Act, we call intergovernmental, any grant dollars, anything from another government would sit in that. A little over $1.5 million. Our EMS fees decreased during this period, $362,540, and then we had some contributions in of $404,000 that increased on the revenue side. If you look at the expenditure side, $973,306 increase, 4.6%. I was looking at this, the same dollars for 2019 from the previous year, and that's exactly what we increased, was 4.6% in our expenditures the previous year. Okay, so pretty on par as far as how we're budgeting and spending there. The most significant departments that decreased here, Board of Commissioners increased, our elections registrar increased. Of course, that can fluctuate depending on the activity of our election process. Our fire increased $602,000. We had a large capital outlay in that department that we didn't have the previous year. Our detention center decreased a little bit, and our road department increased $182,814. And then if you look at our unassigned fund balance, so similar to net position in the general fund, it's called fund balance. So we have our assets less our liabilities equals our fund balance. You can see due to those increase in revenues, we went from $6.3 million, this is our unassigned fund balance, up to $10.2 million, okay? So that's about 5.5 months of our expenditures for 2020, okay? So when you think about the health of the county, where should we be? We expect to be 3 to 4 months minimum is what we want in that fund balance, because we have those reserves, if you will, to carry forward to the next year's budget and things you may be planning on that come up. So we're looking at about 5.5 months. I think the county is very healthy in that position. I can remember days when that general fund was much, much less. Y'all done a good job of getting to the point you are there. If we look at our 5-year trend here on the slide 6, we're looking at the expenditures on the green line and the revenues on the blue line. And you can see there for 2020, we had $26.1 million in our revenues, $22.2 million in our expenditures. And so we did have a large gap there because we had those one-time CARES money. We had increased more than I'm sure we were expecting on the budget side and the revenues. But if you look where we've come from, and you look at back in 2016, our revenues have gone from $18.8 million up to 26. Of course, we don't expect that to maybe keep that way, but as we have the additional federal funding that's come through now for 2021, that will be set in a separate fund. It won't be established here in the general fund, so I don't expect the general fund to have that larger revenue probably next year. But we've come a long ways where we've increased from 2016 even to 2019 in that regard. And then on page 7, this is our fund balance, just as I was referring to a couple of slides back. See where we've come from 2016. We've come from $4,782,000 up to 2020 of $10,239,000. And then on slide 8, I'm going to cover a couple of these other letters here. So we also have a letter that we're required to issue under government auditing standards, okay? Also referred to as the Yellow Book standards. We are reporting here on internal control matters and compliance with laws, state laws, grant agreements, debt agreements, those type of things. And this is where you would find any of the management comments that we have in this letter on pages 97 through 98 of the report. We did have 5 deficiencies that we reported there. I'll be happy to go over any of those that you would like. And we had 2 non-compliance. One of those was over budget. One was timely, payouts out of the clerk report. And then we had a few offices also that we'd just like to see the deposits made a little more timely. When we're not making those deposits on a weekly basis minimum, we drag those out. There's risk that things could go wrong with those dollars. We'd like to make those more timely. I think we had 3 offices that we would like to see those deposits made a little more timely. We tried our best to consider how COVID might have affected that too, but we really didn't feel like that was the case with those. On slide 9, so due to the CARES Act and due to some, probably some other grants as well, I was just referring back here to give you a number, we had right at $1.8 million in federal funds. I'm pulling that off of page 101 if you want to look at that out of the blue report. But as we know, out of that $1.8 million, a little over $1.5 million had to do with the CARES Act. So when you think about what we refer to as a single audit, anytime you receive more or spend more than $750,000 or more in federal dollars, then we're required to do an additional layer, if you will, of audit on just those federal funds. We're required to look at internal controls and compliance and how you spend those federal dollars. Okay? So if you think about that, we had $1.8 million, $1.5 million was CARES Act. Basically, the CARES Act is what put us over the $750 that required us to have that additional layer. And we're happy to report we had no findings in the internal control over those federal dollars. We had no findings over compliance. All that looked good. And the CARES Act was the major one that we looked at as far as how we handle those federal dollars. And then on slide 10, just to let you know a couple things, one of them was implemented here as far as a GASB standard. The Government Accounting Standards Board is what puts out all the standards that governments must follow in reporting of their financial statements and note disclosures and how they handle transactions. GASB 84, fiduciary activities, was implemented in 2020, okay? So you'll see a couple of new statements in here, and I'll just refer to them so I can call your attention to them. You'll see a note disclosure too that required a restatement, just because required a restatement for all governments and how they were handling these. Fiduciary activities means, we call these custodian funds, but it's on page 24 and 25 in the blue binder. That is when we are handling dollars that are basically in and out. In other words, we're collecting dollars for others. So if you think about tax commissioner, clerk of court, magistrate, probate, those offices, and even some activities in the sheriff's department, we have funds come in that we're collecting for others. And all funds that come into those offices are paid right back out somewhere. Some of those monies may come over and do come over to the county, but we also collect those fines and fees or taxes. All those funds don't come just to the county. So we're basically a fiduciary, a custodial in nature of where what comes into those offices pays out to somebody else. There's no residual that really should be there. And when you look at page 24 and 25, both of these statements right here, we had a similar statement in years past as of 24, on page 24, that we would report basically assets and liabilities, but now we have net position in these funds. And really our net position in these funds is made up of the offices that may hold funds that are not paid out, say, in the next 30 days, so to speak. So you think about clerk of court's office. They would hold cash bonds in there until the case goes to court, okay? So that's what would end, an example of what would end up in net position, because we're holding those for a period of time that certainly could extend out longer than 30 or 60 days forward. And then on page 25, the GASB 84, part of the requirement was this is a brand new statement, this page 25. So it shows all the additions and the deductions of what went in and out of those offices, other than the part that goes to the county. We don't include the part that goes to the county and these funds. So when you look at taxes collected, and it's at $25.9 million, you may think, well, I think a lot more taxes come in through that office. They do. We exclude the county portion, okay, because we're collecting for ourselves in that nature, so they're required to be excluded off of those. So when you see a restatement, the restatement is because we didn't have net positions as far as how we were reporting these in previous financial statements. So that's new this year. And then GASB, back to slide 10, GASB 87 is certainly something that's coming up for all governments that will have to be implemented very, very soon. And when you think about these, I've mentioned these before, but we basically have two types of leases right now. We have operating and we have capital. Okay? Capital leases would be, an example of that would be, we go out and we lease some new sheriff department vehicles. And we're going to own those vehicles. Maybe they have a 5-year payout term, and we're going to own those vehicles at the end of the lease. Okay, that's a capital lease. We put that asset on the balance sheet, and we put that debt for the capital lease. It's basically just a financing mechanism. Okay. The other bucket is operating leases. That would be if we were renting a building, renting space. If the leases that we have through Enterprise, we're rotating those vehicles, and we're not going to own those at the end. We're not putting those on the balance sheet as capital, because we're not going to own those. We're recycling those or continuing a new lease at the end. Those will be operating, and those are not on the balance sheet currently. They're all just expenses as we pay those going through our operations. This GASB 87 will change that to be where all leases now are like the capital. So even that enterprise lease or that space that we're renting will have a new capital asset category called right to use asset. And we'll have the present value of those future payments on that operating, what we would have deemed operating before, as a liability on the balance sheet. Okay? This works the other way too. I know you have a few situations like this where you may own a building that you're leasing space to someone else. Okay? So in that regard, we'll have a receivable on the books for those present value, those future payments. Okay? So it works both ways on our financials. Depending how much of these operating, we got to get a handle on these. That'll be the starting point. Let's get a copy of all the agreements. Let's get a list of those. We'll be working with Sandy and making sure we get those handled as they come up. And then last slide, that's really the end of my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Certainly something I might not have hit.
GASB 87,
Yes.
how's that going to affect our budget variance? So we're budgeting not on,
Correct.
budgeting on cash.
Yeah. So I don't believe that, in fact, it will not affect how you're budgeting currently, and that's the strange thing about government financial statements. When you think about the general fund, and you think about those payments right now, how you're budgeting those, whether we have a capital where we're making a payment on a sheriff vehicle, just as an example, or we're making a payment on one of those enterprise leases as an operating, we budget for those in the budget as expenditures in those departments. And the reason we do it that way is because at the fund level, like the general fund, if you look at the general fund balance sheet, the capital assets are not on the balance sheet at the fund level. I know that sounds strange, but that's how it is in governmental accounting. And that debt is not on there either. So I think as far as you budgeting, it will work out the same. Where it will be different is those first two statements I covered where we combine all funds and it's full accrual method there. Those assets before we're making those payments and they're just in expenditures are now going to be capital assets up on that statement, that position, the debt's going to be up on there too. So that statement will be the only effect to that. It's a good thing you don't have to change how you're budgeting right now, please.
I have one other question on the external auditors assisting in preparing the report. What percent of your fee is involved with that?
They're pretty involved. I would say probably 8%, somewhere in there. 6 to 8% of our fees probably involved in that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Kind of to go along with that, trying to think of all our clients we have now. Not involved with every one of them, but we have about 55 or 60 governments that we work with. I believe now every one of them were preparing financial statements. Well, we had 3 or 4 holdovers that were preparing their own. But what would happen a lot of times is we would have almost as much time or more reviewing and going back and forth with changes, because you think about your government, and we prepare these reports, well, I'll just say every day, we're working on them all the time, and you got, as a government, you would only prepare that one time a year, so you have to get back familiar with it and keep up with these changes and going on. So, right now, we're still able to prepare those and remain independent, so to speak, because we give those back to management, they're reviewing the journal entries, they're reviewing those. But as we know, our world is getting more and more stringent on that independence on the audit side, so I'm hoping that don't change going forward, but right now we're still able to prepare those. Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much. If anything comes up after, Sandy knows where to find us. Feel free to give us a call, we're glad to help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you.
All right, update from Parks and Rec. Kevin.
Good morning. I really don't have much, but our youth football season halfway over now. We've got 2 more home dates, the 23rd of October and November 6th. November 6th, we'll be hosting the playoffs, so we'll have all the top teams be coming to mostly to play. Basketball registrations are still going on, and the numbers are pretty much the same as they've been in the past, so they haven't dropped off any. As all the registrations on basketball ends at the end of October, so there'll be usually about 50% of those people come in the last 2 days and register, so everything's just running smoothly.
All right, any questions? Thank you, Kevin. White Path Golf Course, Mike.
Good morning. I went over with Carlene and Beaver here. Business is good. What I did on your reports right there is I combined the 2 months I missed last month, so I combined, this is August, September. So roughly, well, it's 4,000 rounds for 2 months. You can see the memberships are coming in, the merchandise, when I can get it, people are buying that. Range has been extremely busy. So all aspects of that side of the golf course is, people are, like you were saying, people are coming up and seeing us and they're spending money. So, the one tournament that we had was the Touchdown Club. They had 55 players. That was on the 15th. The next tournament, this is a new one, meet next Wednesday at Gilmer. It's the first time they've had one. Jan's working hard. I don't know how many we're going to have yet, but hopefully if they get up to that number there, that they can make some money, we can too. So, as far as the course goes, all I hear is positive comments on it all the time, out of town, people, in town, people, everything's positive, which is what we want to hear. So, the greens it was one of the things that me and you were talking about toward the end of summer. They started to not look the way I like it. Water, we aerified, that's why I missed last month, and they're as good as they were, but they came back good. And here the next couple of weeks, they should be even better. That's pretty much all.
Thank you, man. Public Works, Jim.
Good morning, everybody. Before I get started with my report, I would like to tell you all that this will be my last report for a while. I'll be going on medical leave next week to have surgery. And in doing this job for 8 years, my 2 predecessors had an assistant public works director, which I never had until now. And Charlie thankfully hired an assistant public works director, and I'd like to introduce him. Ryan, if you would please. Ryan Steingruber is our new assistant public works director. And next month, for sure, we'll be making this report to you. So you all take it easy on me. Let me start out with roads and bridges. We still are dealing with one disaster. That is March 25th, 26th flash flood event. And we'll be continuing. Kevin and Mike are still dealing with that with Keith Casera, and we will as well. So, but all of the other disasters that we were working on for seemed like forever have been closed One of the things that I want to comment to Commissioner Parker that we talked about last month, the damage to the Vanilla Lane wooden bridge, that particular violator of the postage signs paid for those damages in full. Road paving, we are in the process now. We have 2 paving projects going. One is the project that was awarded to Colditz Trucking. They are working on Porttown Road and have about half of that completed. They were interrupted last week with weather, and I was told yesterday that they will be starting back Thursday to finish Porttown Road. And once that's finished, then they will move to Round Top, Mount Pisgah, and Holden Roads on the south end of the county. The LMIC paving that the road department is doing, during the month, we paved Stone Road in its entirety, Hickory Ridge, Pleasant Gap Circle, Mountain Town Road in spots. And currently we are preparing to pave Scrabstown Road, Edmondson, East and West, and Pisgah Roads on the east side. And so that is our schedule right now. That's what we have done. Any questions in the road department?
Jim, just so I don't get questions from those on the west side, go ahead and mention what we'll be paving once we finish on the east side.
Once we finish that, and you all have a copy of the list. Once we finish on the east side, then we will be paving Bodie Road, Lakeview Road, Pleasant Valley Road on the south side. Those roads, and what we try to do, folks, is when we mobilize equipment, we move it to a particular area. We try to get all of that done as efficient as we possibly can, instead of flipping back and forth, because it is hard wear and tear on the equipment and not very efficient as well. One of the things that I will tell you, as far as the road department paving, and all of the paving that we do is tar and chip or triple surface treatment. Our chip spreader is down with a blown engine, and our fallback position to do tar and chip is with what's called tailgate spreaders. We only have 2 trucks that are equipped with those tailgate spreaders. So that makes it go slower. But we are still continuing on with the paving as we committed to.
How long do you have the motor replaced or repaired?
We have it in the shop here right now at Mosley Equipment, and the spreader is so old, it's an old international motor. We're hoping that we can get parts for it, but they're tearing it down now, and they'll report back to us and tell us whether or not they can get parts to repair it. A new chip spreader is on the market today is $300,000, but it's old, and you know, you have breakdowns with the amount of equipment that we have. You have breakdowns, and this one came at a very inopportune time, as they always do. The other thing that I want to mention to you, and I've got other things that are on the agenda, so I won't mention this, but the October 1st deadline has come and passed with the intergovernmental agreement for Mulberry Gap. So we will no longer be maintaining that road, but we are picking up 2 roads that were Gilmer County roads back into our maintenance schedule. And the other item that I wanted to talk to you about is on the agenda, and that's Half-Oak Road. Solid waste. You have our monthly tonnage report, which is pretty self-explanatory. I do want to point out to you that the report looks light this month as far as the tonnage, and that is because we think that Waste Management made a mistake. We've got a record of 9 more pulls that they didn't show. The other projects that we have going in solid waste, first of all, is the Amnesty Tire Program. We finished our first week of Amnesty Tire program last week with 793 tires collected. We are in the second and final week that will end this Saturday. Two other projects that we have in solid waste. One is the lift station project. You are scheduled to open bids on the 22nd of this month. On that project, we currently have 7 plan holders, and in discussing with our engineer, Carter and Sloop, they've identified at least 4 contractors that they determine as being qualified for the project. We never know until it's time to open bids how many bids will be received, but it's looking promising right now. I will tell you that one of the things that everybody is experiencing, and we're no different, and that is supplies, material. And that you're probably experiencing it in your personal life. We're experiencing it with asphalt, and we may run into some problems with materials with this project because of the force main. It is a very specialized type of piping, high-density polyethylene welded, double line. So I just tell you that to warn you that there may be some of those kind of problems during the project. The other thing that we are advertising now is our vendor services for solid waste. That is running in the newspaper and being advertised now. The RFP is scheduled to be opened on the 29th. David, you certainly need to be at that opening. We have met with in pre-bid sessions with 2 prospective candidates. We will be meeting with a 3rd this afternoon. We have 3 viable candidates. Maybe 2 out of the 3 are viable candidates, but that is something that you have facing you. That contract would be scheduled to begin January the 1st of 2022. you need to put that on your calendar thing. That's all I have for Public Works. Any questions?
I do have a question, Jim.
Yes.
So I'm assuming, but I don't like to assume, but that you'll have exactly what the road department and Public Works needs for our budget meetings prepared since you'll be out.
Yes, we have already done the solid waste department. We'll be working with the road and maintenance departments, and we'll have those too, Sandy. My absence is estimated at about 6 weeks, so I'm hoping to be back before without budgets.
We'll be praying for a
Thank you
quick,
very much. I appreciate
complete
that.
recovery.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Update on the swimming pool, Lloyd?
As y'all know, when we went out for bids, we didn't get any bids, and we've had to go back for additional engineering. And right now, we're looking at several engineering firms, local engineering firms, to come up with us a new bid package. So that's where we are right now.
One of the things that I want to kind of discuss while we're on this topic, a couple of things really. The first is, I have promised that we would have a town hall type meeting on the swimming pool before too much longer, let folks weigh in on the situation. And I guess the first thing I need to do is find out if y'all want this to be a full committee type thing or not. Find out if we need to advertise it or not. So,
I'm trying to figure out what the purpose of the town hall is.
it's just to let people ask questions, get information, you know, they basically just status and involving the public in this. For instance, one of the things that we've been talking about is whether or not we would have a diving well. That's one of the things I'd like to have discussed by the people in the county in the town hall meeting. And it's been requested, and I promised the people we would do it, but now, I'm fine doing it just as a town hall meeting. And, you know, and nothing more. I just need to find out if y'all want to attend, then we have to advertise it. So, and it, you know, I'm good either way, I just need to know which way to go.
Well, the status is about what it was a year ago. And I'm not fussing at you at all. You pushed and pushed, but last month, we would have engineering in about 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, those things, we have been very disappointed by the folks who were gonna be giving us that engineering. We actually did get from one of them something, but it turned out to be just about 4 pages of essentially drawings. Sorry. What we received turned out to be about 4 pages of just drawings, and I don't mean technical drawings with specifications, I just mean drawings, like here's what it'll look like. And that's not engineering. So we went on the hunt again for some other folks. David found a couple very good prospects, and we had a couple more that we were able to identify. So we've got a whole new crowd in the ball game now. The problem is we've got to have proper engineering before we can do anything. And we haven't been able to get that. We didn't get that from the folks in California. We haven't gotten it from any of the folks that said they would give us engineering so far. They've either given us nothing or just those few pages of drawings. We're essentially back to square one.
I know that we did have a public hearing when we started this pool process. I'm not opposed to having a new one, but we did have a public hearing.
Well, this wouldn't
Discussed all that.
really be a public hearing.
I mean, a public,
Well, no,
public comment meeting or
Yeah,
whatever.
right.
We did have that when we started this
Well,
process. So,
there's a lot of people who are following this and who, I guess, want to be able to speak on it. But I've had a lot of requests saying, will you have another meeting before big decisions are made? And I always promise, yes, we will.
I'm fine either way, I don't mind attending, be glad to attend.
This is not going to be one where decisions are made. It'll be something where suggestions may be made that we can talk about later. But, let's see.
and if you are having another one, I do want to attend, so.
Okay. That's all I need to do.
So to clarify for these engineers, we have another group of engineers that we're looking at, but we haven't selected one to do the engineering work, correct? Okay. So we're really back at,
Back to square one.
okay.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this, there's nobody who wants that swimming pool finished any more than I do. And this has been very frustrating all the way around.
I know it has, I didn't, you worked hard on it.
Oh, I didn't take it that way either. But what we gotta do is just keep plodding along, it will get done. So, and it'll get done by Memorial Day. I'm just not sure which year.
I don't know about that.
Thank you, Lori. Oh, I did want to mention one other thing about the swimming pool. I was looking at some of these drawings that we got. And, you know, that's a really beautiful, impressive looking thing. Looks awful complicated to me. And I gotta tell you, I think I'm tending to favor just a straight old rectangular swimming pool. I mean, all these little swirly things at the end and stuff like that, gotta be expensive and time consuming.
That's why you need a meeting, because
That's one of the reasons for the meeting, because that's one of the things I want to discuss. Instead of all that, you know, my take is let's just build ourselves a rectangular swimming pool and we'll put a kiddie pool next to it separately. Just be done with it. So, that's one of the things that I want to discuss at that meeting. So. Okay, moving on. Discussion, possible action of the American Rescue Plan Act. Let me see. I wanted to see if Gary McVeigh was here. Don't think so.
I told Mike I didn't think it was necessary, but.
Okay. No, I just thought he might be. But I did meet with Gary and Mike, and they have suggested that as part of the American Rescue Act, I always want to say recovery, but I guess it's rescue. Not the first batch of money that we got, the 3.6 million that we've already received, but from the 3.6 million that we're supposed to receive next year. They would like for us to consider a project extending water out further into the county in some areas where they're experiencing some water quality issues and so forth. Water availability issues as well. And the cost on it would be around in the $1 million range. For myself, I think that'd be a good use of the funds. But I wanted to bring that up in this meeting to see what y'all thought about it, because if we feel like this would be a good idea, there's probably a lot of planning things that they need to be doing in the meantime. So,
I think it'd be a great idea, and I think we can get some water to people that really need it. There's a lot of iron in the area they're talking about.
Exactly.
And as I understand it, they would lower the impact fee for this project.
Yeah, they're talking about lowering the impact fee to about a real minimum. I think you're talking around $25 from what, 500 or more.
And I think another big advantage, look how it would help the fire department.
It would, yes.
I'm all
Water
for
available
this.
more further throughout the county. So that being the case, should we go ahead and just do a resolution now for that? You think that we would approve that?
Whatever we can do tomorrow night, let's do it so they can begin to.
Yeah, that's,
Can we know a little more?
Shirley,
details?
do you know what area they're looking at extending water to?
I'll have that tomorrow night. They told me, but, you know,
Okay,
I think they're talking about Round Top Road.
they've already extended Round Top.
I mean, extending, no, they haven't extended much. Well, down Round Top.
All the way, extending Round Top, Mount Pisgah to the county line.
Probably. And there's a lot of side issues, side
Oh,
people
absolutely,
there that we can.
absolutely.
what I will, or something.
I was gonna say, if we could have someone here,
I'll get here,
maybe Gary,
Okay, we can do
with Jim, to make sure that's the right,
that. Okay.
it's on the same page.
All right. Anything else on the Tractor Rescue Plan? Discussion, possible action on group health insurance rates. Kathy, how would you like to tell us all about our health insurance rates?
Okay. Do you want me to come up there?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Sorry. Okay, going into renewal, we were looking at an increase for the medical, with no changes to the coverage anyway, which would have made it a 14.76% increase. But if we go with Anthem Dental, we can get the renewal down to 10%, so of an increase. I think we had a couple other quotes, but they were higher. One was really low, but if we go with that one, then we can't go back to Anthem for 2 years, which then usually what happens is you get the really low quote and then you get an extremely high one for the second year. You can't go back to Anthem. Plus, a lot of the employees, are more comfortable with Anthem, and all of their doctors are, in the plan and that kind of thing, so. The rates for our Delta Dental, which is who we're with now, the increase was 9.56%. If we go with Anthem, it's 11.20% increase, but we get the bigger discount with the medical portion of it. So, with the Allstate for the cancer and accident plan, they are no longer able to enroll electronically in that. And so MSI proposed to switch to AFLAC, which is also the cancer, well, it's not a cancer policy. It's the same accident insurance, and then they call theirs critical illness instead of cancer. So they suggest that we switch to the AFLAC instead. Employees who are still on with Allstate can keep the coverage. We can still do a payroll deduction for that and still, pay for it that way. It's just the enrollment portion, they're unable to do electronically now, so the decision needs to be made to renew the medical with Anthem and keep the dental with Delta Dental, which would give us that 14.76% increase, or renew with Anthem and change the dental to Anthem to get the 10% renewal instead.
Well, 4.76% on that overall cost would be a significant amount.
Yeah, I think they said it was like 150,000 savings to switch to the Anthem Dental then.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
What's the recommendation?
Well, the recommendation, I think, is going to have to come from us. Both plans will provide comparable coverage, but with different players, so to speak. For me, the only coverage that I have from the county is the Allstate cancer plan and the dental. And I way prefer Delta Dental to I always want to call them Blue Cross, but Anthem. But having said that, for 4.76% on the overall medical, you know, that to me is almost, you just shouldn't turn that down kind of thing.
I guess the biggest, what's the biggest impact on the employees if you change? You said some doctors might not be in the new plan.
For the dental,
No, I'm going for the medical.
the medical.
We're already on
I think
Anthem
we're
for medical, I think, are we?
to stay with Anthem, and those doctors will all be the same. It's if we had taken one of the other quotes, which the one was much higher. So this is just talking about the dental portion of it.
To get the 10%, the only change would be from Delta Dental to Anthem Dental. And as far as the impact, I would imagine it would depend on, the coverage is essentially the same.
Correct.
But whether or not, for instance, my dentist would take Anthem, I don't know.
I misunderstood. I thought you were talking about two different medical plans. That's not the case. Okay.
They're tying the cost of the medical to us taking their dental as well.
Reducing it if we take their dental as
Right.
well. Do you know if Anthem Dental, is it just as likely that anyone locally around here will take that as easy?
As far as I know, I tried to do a search for specific, dentist in the area, and I couldn't get into the system because I'm not a member, so, but I can research it a little bit more.
Okay. Well,
They look the same, like the same
coverage
benefits.
is the
Identical.
same. It's
So,
just going to be a matter of whether or not their dentist takes the plan.
yeah.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Okay, so that's something that we'll decide on then tomorrow night. Discussion, possible action of extending county maintenance on Halcott Road to the Corps of Engineers property. Jim, I told you when to take my name off this and put yours on.
Well, I'm sorry to bring this back up, but I had, during the past month, I have had numerous conversations with Corps of Engineers in Mobile, Alabama. And they have gone back and they want to divest themselves of Halcott Road in the similar way that the county and the Corps established a precedent with Oak Hill Road, which is off of 382, and Ridgeway Road, which is off of 282. And the reason that they stated is that, and I'm going to quote Ms. Carrie Lindigan, the 1,000-unit development that they had became aware of on how in that particular area of the lake. And what what I want to do is provide you with the contact folks, and they have provided me with the action that the Corps and the county took on those other two roads. But they basically they don't want to maintain it anymore. And I can't say that I blame them, because you know, you've got private property on both sides subdivided, and it's the nature of the road is no longer what it was. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, Mr. Chairman.
Problem is, I don't want to maintain it either.
Well, I don't think we've got much of a choice, because we've got people with lots fronting on the road, and you've got a subdivision, coming off of this section of the road. You've got another subdivision there. I mean, and this scares the Corps of Engineers, and rightly so.
Because on the other side of the lake on 382, like you're talking about, those, we took on maintenance of
Oak
those
Hill
roads
Road,
as those developments.
these roads, Commissioner Ferguson, these roads were initially built as access roads to get to the lake or to the construction of the lake. Oak Hill Road off of 382, that road runs directly into the Corps property. The county accepted that road into the county system some years back, and we now maintain it up to the Corps of Engineers gate. There was discussion even 10 years ago of the Corps of Engineers wanting to dedicate or lease a part of the land there for a Boy Scout retreat. So we're kind of linked at the hip with the Corps of Engineers. The Ridgeway area off of 282 those are the roads that we normally would maintain, that we just started October the 1st, maintaining again, that Murray County was maintaining. So I think the Half-Hole Road thing, I don't see a way other than us taking on the maintenance of 9/10 of a mile there, because we've got property subdivided on both sides.
So what I hear you, what I
And
hear you,
commercial development proposed as well, correct?
so what I hear you saying is, when the plat was approved for the subdivision, this should have been addressed.
Hubert, in fairness to the planning commission, and it was addressed in a just sort of over the top of the head, because what was told to the county attorney, the chairman, and myself on a trip that we took out there is that there was a public easement for this section of road granted by Georgia Power and the Corps of Engineers. And that's, I haven't tried to do any research on that. at all. I mean, we maintain part of the road now. And the other part, that the developer has spent $125,000, I believe, something like that, in improvement. I think we should take it into the county system.
Was Ridgeway Church, was that what we got back after the Mulberry Gap switch?
Not Ridgeway Church, Ridgeway Road. Ridgeway Church Road is a county maintained. Ridgeway Road, actually, Carlene, it comes off of 282 in Murray County and winds back into Gilmer County. We have two roads there, Emerald Cove and Ridgeway Road, that we are, in Gilmer County, that we were maintaining. Years ago, 10 years or so, Gilmer County and Murray County did a maintenance swap. We would maintain Mulberry Gap, which is a continuation of Conosaco, which is gravel, and they would maintain Ridgeway Road and Emerald Cove, which are paved roads. The swap didn't seem too equitable to me. There was no money spent by Murray County for maintenance of those roads, and we spend $20,000 a year maintaining that section of Murray County. So, but that's over October 1st. Now back to Happel.
Okay, any other questions on Apple? Well, we'll see what tomorrow brings us in. Okay. Thank you, Jim. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 rezonings. First one, do we ever hear whether they wanted this remanded back?
This is not the one that they requested remanded, this is the Jeff, they didn't want that one remanded, did they, Karen?
No.
Yeah,
Or wait.
and I noticed on the report that you're not circling the approval or denial
Ask Karen about it
on
too.
any of those in here. I don't know what happened this last month, but it kind of gives them no direction as to what that recommendation was from the
Yeah.
commission.
It looks like they took a highlighter and went through it, both.
But
So
they did both.
it's difficult, yes, I had to call Karen.
Usually
and
they
ask.
circle them up.
Right.
Lamar was not there this last month, so it's Jim and Hans did that, and he didn't vote.
Gotcha.
That one was recommended for
So-
denial.
I'm fine with that as well.
Okay, who was it then? I'm confused now because I thought Jeff,
It's the
Watkins
It's the
was-
Yukon Road one.
yeah, no, I don't see it.
It's,
Russell, the estate. It's items
Okay,
4,
I got you, yeah, I see where
4 and 5.
right.
Okay, so we haven't heard though, anything on the decision, whether or not to go forward with that, so then we're bound to go forward.
Well,
He,
we're not there yet, but you want to talk about that? Because I
No,
know for Karen.
but while I'm on the subject of whether or not they gave us a decision, I just want, I didn't want to leave that.
He did ask me for the dates of the hearings that they would be remanded to, so I gave him that information, and I don't think he.
Okay, so he's got till tomorrow night to do that. Okay, starting with the first one then. This will be Jeff Watkins, Mountain Town Road from A1 agricultural to R1 residential low density. This is to build, I believe it was 8, well, it's to build short-term rentals by way of annual splits. Okay. I don't really have an opinion on that. I understand, and I wanted to ask you about this, David. I understand that there's going to be an attorney here tomorrow night on this, but if I'm correct, I don't believe he would be able to speak to this, would he?
No, yeah, remember y'all changed, y'all have changed the format of your meeting. The public hearing has already been heard and held by the planning commission. Your decision is just based upon your review of that public hearing and the documents that are before you, and to either approve or to deny the recommendation.
Okay.
And the recommendation is a denial, as I understand.
I'm fine with the denial as well.
I'm fine with it too. Okay. Melvin and Kim Land, Old Flat Branch Road, A1 agricultural to R1 residential low density. And this is to split 5.78 acres into 2 tracts before we go to the 5-acre minimum while he can still split it. And it's the reason is to give 2 acres to their granddaughter. I'm fine with it myself. Okay. Brantley and Allison Milford, 1939 John Call Road, A1 agricultural to A1 agricultural with conditional use. This will be to create a wedding venue.
I believe the condition, the planning commission approved the condition to be no more than 100 guests.
Okay.
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine.
Mine as well.
Okay. Now, these next 2 are essentially the same thing. R1 to R4 townhouses off Yukon Road. I will say basically what I've said all along. In my opinion, Yukon Road is toast and already beyond capacity, particularly when you think about the 1,000 or whatever is still in the pipeline. I shouldn't say 1,000, there's several hundred. So it's going to be a hard sell to convince me to approve this, but that's me.
I have some questions on that. Why is it not subject to the moratorium? We're talking about 100 units.
They're all in one parcel,
Okay,
and it was in the works before the moratorium.
And actually, it's just simply a rezoning decision. It's not necessarily a construction of a subdivision at its bare fact. So y'all haven't prohibited or issued a moratorium on any rezonings. You just issued a moratorium on the development of subdivisions.
How big is that parcel?
Yes, hang on just a second. I'll tell you, I'm sorry, you don't really need how big the parcel was.
14, almost 30 acres total.
Yeah.
Karen, could you come up and explain to us what you shared with me on the phone? I just want to know some of the, and that's in reference to exactly what the developers would like to do. And I'm not saying for anyone who throws a panic attack that I'm for this. I'm just wanting to hear.
They thought that it would be, to your advantage as well as their own if they were able to present traffic engineer study and an engineer study on the grading on the mountain that's to the east of the side of the property. And they wanted to check to see if they could be tabled to next month in order to do that and have it to to present to you. I explained to them that the board has to do one of three things: approve, deny, or remand back to the planning commission. So I'm pretty sure that it's their request that they have time to get those engineer reports done before a decision is made.
Well, I think that was a request pretty clear, but then when it was explained to them that meant starting over the process, they seemed to get a little pretty much iffy about that.
And then he sent me a text and asked me what dates they would be going through those public hearing and decisions, and I gave him November 18th and December 9th. And I'm not sure, he has not contacted me back to tell me if that fits in their timeline or not.
At the meeting, they were pretty clear, they would not incur the cost of the traffic study and these other studies until the rezoning was approved. Now you're saying that's not the case.
Yeah, I don't think they changed their mind, because they do want the studies to see, I guess, what kind of work might be required. And then the cost of that would probably have significant impact on whether they go forward.
I need help understanding something here. Are they requesting R4 or R5? R4 allows one half acre lots.
When you have water and sewer, you can put a quadruplex, which is 4 units on a half acre.
Can we find out if they're wanting to pay? I'm kind of like trying to get some free survey for us.
I just sent him a text asking if he was still interested in being remanded back, and then we'll do the public hearing again. Hopefully he'll text me back.
I want us to be clear with him, though, that if he decides to do that, that's not us saying that if you do this, it'll be approved.
No, it's starting over,
Right.
and I was clear with him with regard to that.
I'm not sure what you can do to that four-way stop there to make it,
It's impossible.
yeah.
Well, I'm not an engineer, so I don't know. But if a traffic study could be done by someone else and the county not pay for it, given I realize it's them doing it in their monies. I don't think the county is ready for this development right now, but it is an area that has water and sewer and makes sense for possible future because of its location to businesses and everything. But once we get control of Yukon Road, and if they're willing to do the traffic study and engineering on that mountain, that would tell us in the future if this is a good spot or not for future development. So that's my thoughts on that.
Well, and I also do know that not only was the planning commission recommending a traffic engineering and study, they also recommended that the developer or the property owner would have to follow those recommendations. So not only is it free engineering, so to speak, but it would also be free road improvement in there as well. So
Turn lane and whatever was required.
Yes, and there would, my department would not be able to go forward with any permitting until the work that was required by the engineer was done. And that would be to Public Works Director signing off.
Jim, do you have any comment on this?
I was at the planning commission meeting, and I have met with the developers. I've actually been on the site. You've got multiple problems there, and I think now, from what I'm hearing, I think we're taking the correct path in that a developer should provide you with this stuff, or the planning commission with this stuff in advance. at the time that they make their request for rezoning, to assist not only the planning commission, but also assist you. One of the problems that we have there is that four-way intersection is in the city of East LJ, not in the county. Based on the preliminary plans or what I've heard, the traffic would empty onto Old Bennett, where you already have a development, as well as Yukon. And the Williams house that is currently occupied by the Williams becomes an island within this development. Have I spoken correctly? Yeah.
And they're keeping that house? I mean,
Not the old house, Carlene. Mike's house, which is on up the road.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. But I've looked at the site, and as the chairman said, Yukon Road is toast, but it's toast now. And
that was my point.
This just burned the toast.
But that begs the question, and I know that the board is concerned about Yukon Road, but the moratorium that's in place now, surveyors are preparing and presenting subdivisions that are less than 50 acres. They're hitting that 49-acre lot tract, and those subdivisions are even further out Yukon, and they're going to empty out into that same area. So even if you try to address it up near the four-way intersection, it's not fixing the dump in that's coming in off of Clear Creek or from Yukon. So y'all need to be aware that there is still subdivisions that are occurring beyond that intersection.
And I didn't mean to imply that I'm only concerned about the four-way stop here.
I know.
I don't think we've got room for anything else anywhere on Yukon Road,
Or Clear
particularly
Creek.
with what's in the pipeline already.
Yeah, or Clear Creek, but what's
Clear Creek
happening?
either, Fred, yeah.
But you're not, those subdivisions that are in place will be built out, but then you have other subdivisions that are being developed, again, under the 49 acre. I mean, it's happening. So I do want you to understand, you're still seeing other developers that are going to dump those cars in on that same intersection.
It's 120 units.
The intersection of Yukon and Eagles, it's a poor design as it is right now. And, I can see, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I can see ways that intersection could be improved with lighting, not with four-way stops, and possibly turn lanes, both right and left turn lanes. But again, you're dealing with another jurisdiction outside your purview to do that, because that is in the city of East LJ and not in your county.
Well, like I say, I don't know what they could say that would convince me to vote yes on it anyway.
Burn toast. Burn
toast.
They kept referring to throughout about, the intent was to provide affordable housing, but nobody ever asked what dollar amount you're talking about.
They said probably in the 200,000 range.
I didn't hear that in the meeting.
Someone asked, and I remember them saying that maybe in the neighborhood of that, 250. I'll have to go back and check.
Me too. It ain't looking good.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, so I think we move on from both of the next two. Okay, Marvin Gale Patterson, A1 Agricultural P1 Public Institute, to take out 1.73 acres for a family cemetery. I'm fine with that.
Me too.
Okay. Resolution to adopt the 2021-22 annual update of the capital improvement element.
Charlie, do you want to give the citizens permission to speak?
No, I don't think I want to listen to them today. I'm sorry, okay. Citizens wishing to speak, I apologize, I about skipped over you. So anybody that would like to speak on any topic, just come to the podium and speak. Hey, we all.
Nobody ever said it would be this rough.
That's right.
My name is Dana DiLorenzo, and I live off of 282 in Gilmer County. And I don't know if it's Half Pole Road you're talking about, or Ridgeway Road, or whatever it is that goes down the Ridgeway boat ramp. They were talking about taking over, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
There's a problem there. For years, we've driven down there to that boat ramp to go fishing over a dirt road. And there's an area there that is a beaver pond.
Yeah, you're talking about on,
That's on Dotson Road.
Dawson Road, yeah.
Are we
We've
talking,
had to build a little hump there to,
are we taking that over too?
That's already.
that's already ours.
Huh?
That's already ours.
That's already ours.
We had to build a little hump there because of the flooding caused by the beaver dams. The problem with it is beaver dams are on private property. And we can't go in and do anything about them personally. We just have to try to get the property owners to do it. And
I'm no tree hugger, I don't, but, you know, we gotta create a big subdivision back there, or allow a big subdivision to be created back there. And now it just seems like we're gonna have to eat this. And, you know, we create a storm, we stand outside and cry it's raining. Meanwhile, my taxes are going up, and everybody else's. And then beavers out there, you know what the end result is with that?
you can't relocate them. Is that what you're talking about?
You gotta kill them.
Yeah. It's illegal to take them and drop them off somewhere else.
And it involves drowning them. Which means
Well-
you gotta take those beavers and they gotta be trapped, and the traps drown them.
That's one way of doing it. We had a beaver problem in the community where I live, and we had people come out and set traps up on the dam, and the leg traps. And we didn't drown them, but we caught them in the leg traps, and they just came out and shot them. It is actually illegal, and most people don't realize it, but it is illegal to trap a beaver and take him somewhere else and release him.
It just seems mean to me to kill an animal you're not gonna eat. You know,
Yeah.
I've got quite a bit of Native American blood in me. I'm still a little upset about what people have done to this land.
Yeah.
And beavers do what they do, and they dam up areas, and it creates areas, estuaries for fish to populate, and the birds can eat, and it's a whole ecosystem.
It is, but it does substantial damage at the same time.
But now you gotta drive cars through water, you know?
Yeah.
And now we got a big subdivision back there with, I don't know, God knows how many homes that are gonna end up going in back there. That place, that area there's gonna continue to sink, and I don't see any other way to fix that except a bridge.
Ooh,
I don't know if you could put enough culverts there for all the, I mean, we've driven through a foot of water going through there, you know, in the past.
Yeah.
And I'm just not into anything that has anything to do with propping up Bill Holt,
Yes, ma'am.
quite frankly.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've let a mess happen there. And I think this ought to be a kind of a lesson to all of us. You know, whenever you allow something to happen, or you allow a subdivision to go in, or even R4 or R5, then we've got to deal with the repercussion afterwards. You know, what's going to happen after the fact. And then it all goes back to, you know, whatever.
Right.
And I don't see a lot of the development that's going on, or people are talking about, you know, there's a lot of talk going on right now about the R4 and R5, R4 in particular. And a lot of people are being sucked into the thing that they think they're gonna get affordable housing, and their idea of affordable housing may not be our idea of affordable housing. Because we haven't put a price tag on that.
We've tried real hard. The one definition that we finally got, I think, was under 200,000 to buy and $800 a month to rent. Now, but that comes with the consideration that for most folks who need affordable housing are not going to be in a situation to buy a home even under 200,000. So rental is what, for affordable housing, rental is really where it's all about. And for that, they're talking in terms of about $800 a month. And I don't know how you'll ever get that.
Well, I don't know. Nobody wants to put any sweat equity into anything anymore. Everybody wants it handed to them. The kids, I'm calling them kids because they're probably under 30 years old or 35 years old.
Yeah.
They want it handed to them. And people who don't want that type of housing don't want to do anything to help them out. And so nobody wants to do anything. We've got a housing shortage here right now because we've had a big migratory thing happen in the United States. You know,
Yeah.
people are moving in from all over the place. We advertise the heck out of this area. I know you guys are getting about sick of hearing me right now. But I'm about fed up with it too. You know, and I think Gilmer County is just about full. This growth thing, I've had it about up to here. We are full. Our kids that actually live here and that grew up here should be able to have a place to go. I understand that. But we got a lot of people that have moved in from Atlanta now, and they're building houses, and they're using the rental houses to live in right now until they get their house built. So they've sucked up a lot of the rental community. And I think if after this COVID thing settles down and people quit moving around so much, I think you're gonna find out that things are gonna settle in a little bit. But, you know, we need to think about creating problems for ourselves and what's gonna happen down the road with how you're gonna get from point A to point B when most of these roads were built along deer trails that became cart trails, that became
Right.
roads for cars, and there's ravines and mountains, and there's nowhere to go with the road.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't have but so many avenues that we can go down.
Right.
And now we're talking about the Beaver Pond, and we're talking about killing beavers. Just, you know, we're just gonna kill them. Somebody's gonna kill
Well,
them.
that didn't work out for us.
Well, I'm not a tree hugger, but I'm gonna tell you what, I don't go along with that.
Yes, ma'am, I
And
understand.
I don't know how y'all don't fix it, but now it's gotta come out of my pocket. So,
I don't know how we do fix it. If the problem is beavers damming that pond and overflowing the road, short of getting rid of the beavers.
I'm thinking, with respect, I'm thinking, somebody ought to thought about this before we started it, before that big subdivision was approved back there.
Can't argue that.
Like that.
I'll let y'all have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Rebecca Harrell, and I'm actually speaking on behalf of our tennis association here.
And I'm Kathy Anderson, speaking on behalf of the pickleball community.
on behalf of the pickleball group.
Yeah, so we're here actually to talk about the lights for our tennis courts. I did want to bring up a couple things. Certainly, we so love our tennis court and our pickleball courts, and I don't know if y'all have driven by there, but we always have activities and things going on. We typically have not only just regular recreational play, but certainly we do tournaments, as well as kind of a round robin, which we also have 3 times a week, especially on the tennis side. I know Kathy could talk specifically about pickleball. But we recently had an Optimist tournament. We raised over $20,000 for our children here in this community. We are absolutely see an opportunity and a need for lights because we're limited, unfortunately, to when we can actually have certain tournaments or have certain activities because there are no lights around there, especially in the fall and winter time when the sun goes down a little early. So I know Kathy's going to talk a little bit, and she's got some other things to discuss.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning. I'm one of those migrants, yes. I moved here from Cobb County back in June, and, well, we had a place up here earlier, years ago, but we do love Gilmer County, and appreciate this time to speak briefly. And I served as pickleball is a total different thing than tennis, and I was tennis for 34 years, but pickleball has a governing body that is a national organization, and it's growing so rapidly. We have over 4 million members now playing this sport, but I've come into this county, and I'm now the Gilmer County Pickleball Ambassador, which I was so thankful that they already had this program. These people have really done a great job with the tennis and pickleball courts, and you have a great thing to be proud of here, because I play all over the country, and I'll tell you what, they don't have what you have, some places that are a lot bigger than Gilmer County. So I was very thankful to see such a great organization already in place. And the lights, like she said, would be so beneficial because on any given day, we can have, especially Saturdays, weekends, for those people that work, they can't come out during the day like some of us retirees. And so the lights would really benefit some of them to be able to play. We can run 50 people on a Saturday on 4 pickleball courts, and the tennis courts are going crazy. So this thing is just going to grow like crazy, and the lighting would be so beneficial. It would also add to your economic impact because people are going to come out and play at night. They're going to go eat somewhere too, right? And they're going to buy their gas, and so it will make an economic impact. And we can do tournaments that would go on into the evenings with lights. So we are really hoping that you will consider having lights for Gilmer County, because I believe that you'll see this thing is not going to stop. It's going to continue to grow. Tennis and pickleball. I mean, I've been in it now for 7 years, and Cobb County has went from 1 venue to 15 pickleball courts, 15 pickleball venues, excuse me. And that's great, but I love seeing what's happening in Gilmer County. You guys have done a great job with what you have got here, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
On behalf of the pickleball community, because we are very thankful for it. They had, I don't know if they had the 2 in the rec center, right, Kevin? And that now they've got 4, and we actually opened up 3 courts at the Victory Christian Center with Brian Bogue, and he's the director there. That's a pickleball club, and we are getting ready just in the next couple of weeks to launch a Gilmer County pickleball club with our own logos, and so we will have a club then at Gilmer County, and that's with Kevin being our director, and I really appreciate Kevin White, by the way. I do. He's very easy to work with, and in Cobb County, we had 400 people to work with. I had to work with that many people. Here, we have 5, or however many you all here, and Kevin's been great, and I can tell you just from experience that isn't always the case. So I do have some things that I just want to hand out to some of you. And oh, by the way, we have 4 pages of signatures of people that were requesting lights from tennis and pickleball community.
If I could speak to the lights for a minute. Lights have always been part of the plan for those courts.
Okay.
What we found was when we were getting ready to build them, that we didn't have enough money to build it all out. We did have enough money to build the courts, but not then to finish it up with the lights. So we decided to go ahead and build the courts. And then when we can get the money, come back with the lights. So it's always been the plan to have lights there. I can't tell you it'll be next month, but we're working toward it, and we'll continue to do that. And hopefully can get them there sooner rather than later. But yeah, it's, that's always been part of the plan.
That's great. Okay, well, I'll just pass these out. You can just, this is just about what's going on with the pickleball community. So I just did four packets for y'all. If anybody want to share that, that'd be fine, just to see what's going on, okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you both for volunteering and doing what you do to keep more people active in the community. You are much appreciated.
You don't think we need more courts?
I play pickleball too.
Just
Here, just to introduce myself, my name is Vito Malfetto, and I'm on the board of directors of the Kusawati River Resort. And we just formed a new committee, which I am chair of, which is the Government Relations Committee. Being that Kusawati is probably one of the largest land tax bases here in the county, that we really need to develop a partnership with the county, certain synergies that we can share together to save money in any place. We do feel your pain about engineers, because we have 2 rows that went out. We finally were able to secure an engineering firm to help us out with that. So I look forward to attending these meetings, and I thank you all for a great job that you all do in the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Vito.
Yeah.
Hello. I'm Bill Walters. My wife and I moved up here in Pickens County just a few months ago. Really enjoying it here. I'm trapped here now because she's in love with pickleball. My dream of living in a cave in the Smoky Mountains is over. But we certainly enjoy living here. I am so glad we moved here. How refreshing it is to hear an audit, which I'm usually scared to death of numbers, my degree's in English, but to hear an audit that is positive and not negative. And for that reason, I too am requesting that you move quickly as possible and reasonably on getting lights to these courts, and if possible, looking into the future of expanding. One thing I'd like to look at, okay, is I am not a big fan of solar as far as residential, right? But we have seen in states like Tennessee that are really going towards interstate lighting that's solar powered. If we're going to do it, let's do it right from the beginning. And if we can study a solar powered system that will lower the cost over the long haul, spend now, save later. I really would appreciate that. One other thing, I'm a veteran, as you can see. I'm a proud veteran. I'm proud to live in a community that respects veterans. We're under a lot of strain. I know the county's under a lot of strain. However, we do have some veterans memorial spots in the park. Now, how do we maintain those? And I'm sure you've probably heard some complaints about those. If you haven't, I've read some reviews. Someone from out of state was surprised at the condition of that. I've got a solution. I was a mentor with the Veterans Corps program with the Appalachian District. And you have an unlimited source of manpower. These veterans are assigned community service projects. When my 4 people that I had under my wing, under me, I would set up community service projects, usually with elderly couples whose husband or wife were veterans and they couldn't take care of their lawn. And I lived in Nelson at the time, and Nelson was constantly handing out, fines, and we would go in and clean up their property for them, free of charge, nothing, no strings attached. You have that source here in Gilmer County, I do believe, and it would be great if we would integrate that program with something like the parks and other areas so that you can use them, and they take pride in it. Believe me, my guys took great pride in doing these community service projects. It doesn't cost the county money other than maybe getting a weed eater and putting some gas in it. So that's all I have to say. I appreciate your consideration of these matters.
Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I should mention that the the veteran memorials that we have are private. They were built privately and are privately maintained. So, but that doesn't lessen what you're saying. It would still be a valuable resource.
If there's anything I as a volunteer can do, even though they're private,
Right.
I think that's public property, I'd be glad to volunteer.
Thank you.
Just to make a note on that, I have, when I'm walking out there at the park, and thanking those private folks that put that memorial in, they're actually asking for help, and I told them to come see you, but they may not have yet. Or they were looking at possibly going to the American Legion for help. They are looking for help. They're kind, wonderful veterans and aging, and I know they would love to help, so
I
maybe
think-
some way to make the connection.
I think what they would have to do, rather than to come see me, would be to put it before us to see if we want to take those in and start maintaining them.
Okay, I didn't know if they keep it private and speak to them. I don't care how, but I know they are looking for help. So, and I don't know if that's Kevin.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, staff, constituents, my name is Tom Watley, and I'm not afraid to give my address, 76 Brumby Trail, and I'm right off Yukon Road. Mr. Chair, do we still have I guess a commission rule that we cannot speak on any proposed actions that maybe by all that are on the books, or can we discuss anything now?
In this particular part of the meeting, you can talk about anything you want to talk about.
Yes, sir. Okay, good. Just want that clarified. The proposed, and I was at the planning and zoning meeting with regard to.
Actually, this is going to be a discussion of any actions that's come out of the planning commission. Yeah, and it sounds like it is, Tom.
Okay.
You're reconstituting another public hearing, and it's not
Okay.
permitted under the ordinance.
You can talk about almost anything.
Well, okay. Thank you, council. I appreciate the clarification. So what I'll do is I'll go hypothetical. If we were to hypothetical find, I don't know, say a combined 30-acre parcel someplace off Yukon Road. And if we were to have I don't know, say a builder come up from Atlanta that would do a proposed of somewhere between.
Tom, I really appreciate the effort that you're going through to share this, but I don't want to create an issue that puts the board in a position that they have to legally defend their action tomorrow night. That's my concern.
Yes, sir, and okay. How about if we talk about down the road on Yukon? I mean, council, as long as I'm not specific, Mr. Chair, and not talking about,
I don't see any issues with discussing Yukon in general, as long as you're discussing Yukon in general. But if you begin to tie it to the considered action tomorrow night, we just are reconstituting, reopening that public hearing without the applicant having the opportunity to be heard or to rebut anything.
Okay, I tell you what, then let's just forget I even mentioned anything about 120 unit coming in on Yukon Road, council. I'll bring it up
You
again.
keep sliding it in, Tom.
Yes, sir. I'm pretty crafty. Now, Yukon Road itself, we'll just talk about Yukon Road itself. That I have to drive down that road quite a bit. Somebody made the mention, and I saw it, and I just shook my head. I said, well, why don't we just widen Yukon Road? Well, they don't realize how much money it would take to widen Yukon Road. And if you even ever consider that, you'd have to almost go all the way down to Fire Station 9 for traffic control, traffic calming. That's just not gonna work. And I can't imagine anybody trying to pull out on a 4-lane road on Yukon Road. It's not gonna.
Wherever you heard that, you can pretty much discount it.
Yeah, I'm gonna shut that down as soon as I get home. Traffic is bad, and that particular area, Mr. Chairman, I think you're like me, you probably have to travel down that road and cross over from Yukon to Maddox 515. I'm gonna come out on a limb and say I have no traffic study to show this. That's gotta be the busiest intersection in the county. I think it is, especially at prime time. It's,
Malfunction junction.
Dysfunction junction.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're up, top 2 or 3 maybe.
We can go with second business.
Second. So, anything other than what's gonna be on the agenda for tomorrow night, anything in the future, we have to take that into consideration. You know, if you talk any other development, say, you know, 200 or 300 units trying to come in after the moratorium is expired, I can only imagine, you know, 2 or 3 cars per household trying to come in and then trying to drive down that road. I think it's just gonna be really tough to make decisions in the future on any future developments. And I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chair.
Well, I've made my feelings known when you come, so I won't,
Yes, sir.
I won't go over that again, but,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
And Ms. Counselor, I appreciate your indulgence. Let me try and slide stuff in. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Commissioners.
Yes.
I have, something to
I want to go back to Half Pole Road. I don't care about beavers, you know, they don't bother me. But I think that improvements on that road should be the responsibility of the developer. He's the one lining his pockets over there. He's the one that ruined the whole, this side of the lake and my happy fishing days. So I think he should be responsible. $125,000 ain't nothing he put in that road. He should fix that whole road, and that's his responsibility, the developer, not the county. Maintenance on it after the road is in, maybe the county should deal with that. But as far as making Half Pole Road so this guy can line his pockets and get rich, it's a bunch of crap.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, my name is John DiLorenzo, and I live on 783 Lakeland Drive in Gilmer County. And I'm proud to be there. It says on my deed, to have and hold and be happy. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Now I have something I'd like to say. I want to ask the board to consider having Jennifer Gilmer, the chamber president, present to us next month when she presents her state of the year with us. But to speak to us, she's got a presentation on increasing the hotel motel tax to 8%, which would allow us to actually end up paying the chamber paying them probably about the same, but the county would take in a substantial amount of money. And she's presenting, City of Ellijay has asked her to come to present to them because they're interested in increasing that 5% hotel motel tax to 8%, or to increase it, period. And I want to make clear that the discussion of what I'm talking about here, this would affect no Ellijay resident whatsoever. These are just our tourists and our friends that come to visit. This is the hotel motel tax that they pay. The county right now, they pay their, wherever they stay, their Airbnb and that type of thing. So it would not affect a single Gilmer County resident, but we in fact are leaving money on the table by not increasing this tax, meaning the county. This is money that the county could take in their general fund. And I think it is worth when our chamber president is asking for us to consider it, I would love to have the opportunity to hear what she has to say and consider it. I know that David Ralston is willing to, our representative is willing to help us with that. And we are in some kind of a time frame if we chose to move forward, because it does need to be on local local election ballots and that type of thing. But so the timing is important that if we're considering it, to have Jennifer come in and present that presentation next month and find out exactly, because the numbers that I'm looking at, and I will state my interest in this, the county's interest. Carlene Ferguson, Post-Due Commissioner, is raising that to that 8% and lowering the percentage that we give the chamber from 70%, which is what we give now, to 40%. And that actually keeps the chamber's budget about the same, so they're still comfortable and can pay their staff and do all the things they do and market this community. And yet it would bring in over $1 million to the county's general fund. So that, I'd like to be given the numbers, hear from her, understand what that option is. Blue Ridge has been doing it for a couple of years now. Pickens does it as well. I think we're the only one of a tourist community in this North Georgia area that is not there. And I think our community, when they understand what it really means, that it would not affect our taxes whatsoever, but in return give us more money for roads, more money to go towards a pool, more money to go towards pickleball lights. That there's some things that we can spend that money with if we adjust those numbers. So I would just ask the board that you consider adding that to the agenda next month for Jennifer to present and give us the chance to vote on that.
Gilmer, what are your thoughts on that? You okay with it?
Well, you have the,
They're strong, and
I mean,
especially,
you're saying you wanted, so you can see the numbers, sound like you already have the numbers.
well, and, I have not seen Jennifer's presentation. I just see,
And we'll, go ahead and put that on the agenda. Are you going to speak with Jennifer to make sure that she's okay with doing that?
I will if you want me to. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? If not, resolution to adopt the 2022 annual update of the capital improvement element for Gilmer County and the cities of LJ and East LJ. This is something that we have to do every year in order to continue as a, what's deemed a qualified county by the state. There are no changes to anything represented by this other than the fact that we have to submit this and approve it every year. So I will be suggesting that we approve this tomorrow night. Discussion and possible action of potential office needs and reconfiguration. I want to skip that for right now. So, discussion and possible action of Georgia Power easements. So far, I haven't gotten a list. I know that they want more easements. They're planning more construction and more power additions. And I'm supposed to have a list of the easements by tomorrow night, so we'll see if we get them. Discussion and possible action of appointment of a human resource director. As y'all know, Lauren is out to have a baby, and she's indicated that she would like to come back with a more flexible work schedule than what would be required as a department head. So what we're looking to do is to be sort of flip-flop her and Kathy. So Lauren, when she comes back, would come back as the assistant, and then Kathy would take over as the department head. And so I will be making that recommendation tomorrow night.
They both do a great job.
Yes.
I'm thrilled that they both want to stay on and work out.
Discussion and possible action on budget amendment. I would like to hold that for now as well. Review spending action on resolution. Adoption of first reader of use of speed detection devices ordinance. I'm going to ask Stacy to either be at the meeting tomorrow night or have someone here. Because I know there's going to be a lot of questions and they need to be the one answering them, I think. Discussion and possible action of changing the work session and regular meeting dates in November of 21. We kind of went back and forth on this a little and did change them. We ended up though with the work session on the 16th. And that turns out that it's gonna be a problem.
I showed it was the 17th.
Work session on the 16th.
We voted on the 16th, I
think
changed
that's-
it to the 17th, I don't know why, but we don't have a vote.
Well, that's the issue. We can't figure out, you know, who did what and why to make it the 16th or the 17th. Some of us had the 17th, which is what I had. Others have the 16th.
So
We just need to,
we're all together.
we just need to make that official tomorrow night. So,
Still be traveling.
The 17th.
17th works for me if it does for y'all.
Mr. Chairman, although I won't be here, I want to remind you, while you're talking about next month's meeting, you've got some pressing issues. The issue on the solid waste vendor, that has to be in place in order for a contract to be in place by January 1. So that issue is going to come up in November.
Yeah, there's probably going to be a couple of special call meetings between today and the end of the year. to take care of a lot of things.
And plus.
We'll
she's
keep you
got-
informed, Jim. We'll make sure we text you and let you know that we haven't made a decision, haven't made a decision, and just let the pressure.
Well, you've also got the lift station to consider too now.
We'll ask them, would they go ahead and wake you up there on the table long enough to let you know?
We need to keep the 18th, the regular meeting at 9 on the 18th. I don't remember why we said 9, but we need to keep it there because we advertised to adopt the speed connection ordinance that day at 9 o'clock.
I'm fine with that.
Planning session is at 5.
Planning commission's at 5. So what are we saying?
The
Board-
17th.
The work session.
The work session would be the 17th,
Okay,
and the regular meeting would be the 18th at 9 a.m.
okay.
Okay,
I guess that's why we changed it to that morning because she hasn't been here.
yeah, that would explain
Yeah.
it. I need a very short executive session. So, then, at this point, I would make a motion that we go into executive session with no action anticipated. Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And what, did you
Okay,
say
folks, we
9?
appreciate it.
No, I don't know that.
9 a.m.
Karen has a meeting that night.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Yeah, how much did you pay them? How much did you pay them? Kevin?